Hi and welcome to Let's Start Playing. My name is Henry and today I'm going to be teaching you how to play Cthulhu Death May Die. This is a game for 1 to 5 players and players will be trying to disrupt the ritual of their chosen Elder One. In this video I'm going to show you how to play the game. I'm not going to show you how to set up the game. So before you watch this video, please set up the game in front of you, read all the instructions and then I'll get into the rules explanation. Hopefully now your board is set up and ready to play. The goal of Cthulhu Death May Die is to first disrupt the ritual and then kill your Elder One that you're up against. Players will need to do this before the Elder One advances along this track to this location on the track, or before all players have died. Take a moment to look over this card, read how you can disrupt the ritual for your scenario. It is one of the requirements before you're able to take on your Elder One. You are unable to damage the Elder One before you disrupt the ritual. And this card will also have some unique actions and events going on in your scenario. So take a moment to read over this. These will make sense as I explain the rest of the rules. Collect all these enemies and place them to the side, ready to be added into your scenario. Enemies have a strict limit based on the component amount. So if you ever exceed how many enemies are put on the board, you do not add any more. Players should all have a character that they've selected and a condition. And all of your markers should be set up like below here. Let's look into the actions players can perform on their turns. The first action we have is run. And to run, players simply can move 3 spaces. Spaces are indicated with doors with arrows pointing in and out of the rooms. So in this case, to move 3 spaces, I could move 1, 2, 3, like this. And that would count as one action. There are some rules, however, for moving through a room with enemies. If I was to pass through this room and move on to the next room, the enemies would follow me into that room. If I then move again into this room, all the enemies from this room would then follow me out into this new room. Enemies will gather like this, following the person who's moved, unless they have an ability or other rule that breaks this condition. When running, if you pass over a fire space, you need to add 1 fire token to your player board. So if Ahmed had moved out of this room with a fire token, 1 fire token will need to be added to his player board. This will get resolved at the end of their turn. We have 3 total actions that we can do in our turn. We could perform the run action 3 times if we wish to. However, let's go over the attack action. To make an attack action, you need to make a roll against an enemy in your space. You can only select 1 enemy unless you have a rule that tells you otherwise. And when you make an attack action, you simply roll the black dice, and based on the number of exclamation marks you roll, you successfully do 1 damage to your chosen enemy. In this case, I have chosen to attack this cultist. This roll will let me do 1 damage to that cultist. To do this, I would simply grab 1 damage token and put it next to this cultist here. You may wonder what these other symbols mean on these dice. These are insanities, and for each one of these you roll, you move along your insanity track along the top of your board. If you ever run into or hit a red marker on this board, you will upgrade your player. Insanity is a double-edged sword, however. If you reach right down to the end of this board, your player will die and you will no longer be able to participate in this game. If I wanted to try and get 1 more damage on this cultist, I could spend stress to re-roll dice. You have up to 5 stress and that is tracked along this area of your board here. To spend stress, you simply move your stress down and choose 1 dice to re-roll. That would successfully give me a hit, and then I could kill this cultist off. If I had rolled another blank, then I could spend another stress to re-roll that same dice again. And I can keep doing this as long as I have stress to spend. You also have an arcane symbol on this. And if your character has arcane mastery, like Ahmed here, these will also count as successes. Whenever you make a roll like this one, you may get bonus based on how insane you are. If you have reached an insanity marker with one of these green dice depicted on it, you will get to add an additional green dice to your roll. There may be some items and abilities that let you add these green dice to your make a roll ability. Read over the ability and make sure to see the conditions of when you can add those green dice. Let's look at reaching these areas on your board. If I was to roll these 3 dice and get 3 insanity, and it would take me over this red marker here, I would stop at this red marker and ignore the remaining insanity. After I've resolved those dice, I would then look to my board and choose one of my skills to upgrade, moving the marker 1 spot to the right. Some of these skills are accumulative and some will say instead. Read over your skills to see exactly what benefits you'll get from upgrading them. Players will be able to perform 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 skill upgrades if they get to this level of insanity over the course of the entire game. So you'll never be able to unlock all your skills before the game has ended. Another effect of reaching one of these red markers is that your condition will trigger. Read your condition and perform the effects on it. These conditions are mainly negative things, but with a positive twist. In this case, I've gone catatonic. I would need to lay my figure down. While down, I am safe, and I can't attack, investigate, move, or take any other action other than rest. To stand up from being catatonic, I must spend 1 stress to stand up. That takes us neatly into our next action, which is rest. Resting will let you recover a mix of free health or wounds. Had something like this, I could recover 2 health and 1 stress by doing 1 rest action. Remember, you can do all these actions as many times as you want on your turn. Another action you have is to trade. This will let you trade items and companions with all of your fellow investigators in your same space. And it's got here episode actions, which is listed up here. In this case, this episode has the destroy equipment action, which I could do if I'm in the same location as one of the equipment tokens. Once I have completed 3 actions on my turn, we then need to draw a Mythos card. You should have a Mythos deck containing both the Elder One and the Scenario Mythos cards. Shuffle these together and then reveal the top card. In some cases, these cards will reveal this Elder One sign. This marks the Elder One advancing along this track. Once 3 of these marks come out, at the end of the round, you need to advance the Elder One, which I'll go into more details later. In this case, I would simply add this card, marking that we've revealed 1 Elder One sign, and perform the effects, which is add 1 fire token to your space and each adjacent space. I can go ahead and do this like this. Adjacent spaces are areas leading into or out of the room that you're in. Passing through solid walls is not possible. Some of the Mythos cards will let you summon enemies. In this case, we need to activate the Star Spawn. Simply read what's written here, move the Star Spawn 2 spaces towards you. Then each investigator in its space loses 1 sanity. Sanity is tracked by this track along here. After we do this, we then need to perform the bottom half of the card, which is summon Star Spawn. Remember, this part always happens before the bottom part. As the Star Spawn is not on the board and there's only 1 model representing the Star Spawn, it is impossible for me to do this and this with this particular card. So in this case, I would summon the Star Spawn on the red summoning portal. During setup, you should have put out the 3 different colors, blue, yellow, and red. And cards will tell you where to spawn enemies as you go. You simply put the Star Spawn model into this space. Had the Star Spawn already been there, we would then need to move the Star Spawn 2 spaces towards the nearest investigator. In this particular scenario, that would lead the Star Spawn to this stairwell, and this stairwell has a green token that leads to here. This is the upstairs and this is the downstairs. So the Star Spawn would come out here, being 2 spaces towards the investigators whose turn it just was. In Cthulhu Death May Die, it is rare for you to be attacked when it's not your turn. Enemies will generally run towards you and attack you only on your turn. We then move on to the investigate or fight step of your turn. You get to investigate if you're in a space that is considered safe, like this one here. The area is considered safe if there are no enemies in that location. When you investigate, you need to draw the top item from the item deck and reveal it. So let's reveal the top discovery card. This one is called Up to No Good. The professor has asked me to help. I'm not in trouble, am I? The student holds a beaker. If you have a guilty conscience, take 1 stress. You may take 2 stress to claim either the grad student or the beaker. In this case, I could take 2 stress to claim either the grad student. Grad student is Charles. He is a companion, and he gives me 2 bonus green dice when I attempt to extinguish a fire. Or we could take the beaker, which is an item. You may discard this to deal wounds to all labs and figures either in your space, including you, or an adjacent space. Each target takes wounds equal to the number of fire tokens in their space. Let's just say I spend 2 stress to take the grad student. And that would be my last 2 stress down here. I would then, based on which side I chose, slide this under my board. As I chose the grad student, I slide it under this side of my board, like so. If I had chosen the beaker, it would slide in over here. Companions don't have figures. They do have health, however, and if I was to take damage in the future, instead of losing 1 of my health, I could instead take 1 health on Charles. Then, if I chose to do that, I would then have to remove his card as Charles has died. If during the investigate or fight action I was in a room with enemies, like this, the enemies will have a chance to attack me. Each enemy will roll dice equal to their powers listed on their card over here. In this case, the cultists each roll 2 green dice each, rolling like so. For each success they roll, they will do 1 damage to me. I can also spend stress tokens in order to re-roll enemy dice if I have any available. Resolve each enemy attack 1 at a time. If any tentacles were rolled on these dice, you would then take insanity equal to the tentacle amount. Enemies only attack the investigators whose turn it is during this phase. After this investigate or fight action, we then resolve end of turn. There are 5 things we need to do here. First, check your board for any end of turn effects that you may have unlocked or are on items that you have. Next, check if you've accumulated any fire tokens on your player. If you have, roll 1 black dice per fire on you, and for each success, take 1 damage. Remember, any roll that you roll a tentacle on will give you insanity. Next, you will need to check the mythos pile, and if you have 3 of these symbols, you will then need to advance your Elder One. I've currently laid the Elder One up, but I will stand it up just to show you. To advance in the Elder One, you'll move it onto the next semicircle along the board. When the Elder One advances, they normally have an Elder One advance effect, which you'll need to check here. Perform the effect on your Elder One before continuing. If the Elder One had reached a red space now, it is summoned onto the board. In this case, remove the stage 1 card off your Elder One and proceed on with the next card. Reading the when revealed effect. In this case, Cthulhu would be summoned onto my space. And proceeding with the rest of the instructions on this card. Remember, the Elder One cannot be harmed until the ritual is disrupted, based on the instructions on this card here. Next, checks for any Elder One end of turn effects. Each Elder One has a number of stages. If you are on to the final stage, you need to reveal each of these end of turn effects in order, starting with this one, then this one, then this one, at the end of every turn. In Cthulhu's case, only the top 2 are end of turn effects. Play then advances to the next player. Play will continue like this until you've disrupted the ritual and killed the Elder One or been destroyed. If any player dies before disrupting the ritual, the scenario immediately ends at that stage. However, after disrupting the ritual, if any player dies, play will continue until either the Elder One has died or all the players have died. When the Elder One attacks, check their card for how many dice they attack with. Add dice based on what stage you're on, however, so these stages will accumulate extra dice. In the case of the final stage, they would roll 1, 2, 3, 4 green dice and 3 black dice. The number of bonus dice you can make on a roll is not limited, so if you ever need to roll more than 5 green dice, simply keep track and keep rolling these dice until you have fulfilled the required number of bonus dice. When fighting the Elder One as well, this is how much health each stage of the Elder One has. If you deal this much damage or more on an Elder One on your turn, stop any extra damage that you would do to the Elder One, then reveal the next stage card, performing the when revealed action and resetting the health track. Each Elder One, you will need to destroy all the stages, removing all the health from each stage before they are defeated. After resolving these 3 cards and advancing the Elder One space forward, shuffle all the cards you've revealed from the Mythos deck and shuffle them all back together to create a new pile. Continue in this manner until another 3 symbols have appeared. This should be everything you need to get started with Cthulhu Death May Die. Thanks for watching Let's Start Playing. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.